Welcome to Let's Get Metaphysical, the show that stretches you beyond your five senses. When you are looking for your next step on the path into the unseen, we've got you covered. Join epic adventure seekers and level up your game with your host, reality magician, Allie Bierman.
Greetings, epic adventure seekers. Welcome to your guide to demystifying your world. I'm Allie Bierman, and you are listening to Let's Get Metaphysical, the show connecting heart and mind. If you've not yet done so, please rate and leave a review. Just something simple, a few words about what you like about the podcast, what others might like. And most importantly, please share the show with your friend. Now I'm going to share this week's review. It comes from Vicky Liz 55, who says, Allie brings great wisdom in her choice of guests and delves into the depths and breadth of the physical theater. She explores a variety of availability within the myriad of facets in the metaphysical. Thank you, Vicky List. I feel grateful that you're finding our explorations beneficial. We are all about exploring what you want to know more about on your physical journey. Remember to share our show with your friends. And if you know someone that you want to hear from, please let us know. Today's guest, Michael Neeley, first appeared as a knight in shining armor who, sans the gear, sword, and horse, continues to embody that spirit. Before we jump in, I'm going to take a minute to tell you about the special gift, something I have never presented here before. So I do it now. Well, today we're celebrating episode 25, yay, of Let's Get Metaphysical, and I'll fill you in later. Michael Neeley is a former professional actor and medieval knight turned speaker, mentor to visionary solopreneurs, and the international bestselling author of Zero to Launch Podcast Accelerator. He's the host of 4 popular podcasts, including the critically acclaimed Consciously Speaking, By This Not That, Something to Whine About, and that's Wine, W-I-N-E, and the PodQuest Show. A member of the Screen Actors Guild, Michael's appeared in feature films with Mel Gibson and Kevin Costner, performed off-Broadway with Andre Braugher and Kathleen Chalfant, and had recurring roles on popular soap operas. As a founder of Authority Academy, Michael now trains and supports heart-centered entrepreneurs in professional speaking, virtual summits, getting published, and designing and hosting their own podcasts to massively grow their business and expand their audience. I'm privileged to study with and be mentored and coached by Michael. I know firsthand his wisdom and his heart. In fact, the reason I started this show, and I kind of know what I'm doing, is because of Michael. So I feel so honored to host him as my 25th episode guest. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Allie. It's truly my honor to be this special milestone episode guest. This is great. Congratulations.
This is it's so amazing. I'm just so grateful. I was on Clubhouse when I first met you. I'm so grateful. Otherwise, the show wouldn't be here. What inspired you to leave show business?
That was, I don't know that it was necessarily an inspiration that inspired me to leave as much as it was something that was drawing me towards that. And that was that in 2002, my son was born in Los Angeles, living in LA at the time and still acting. And by the time he was just before his second birthday, his mother and I were looking to consider a move. And we were looking at different areas. We wanted to stay in California, but one of the things I had read, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that if you raise a child in Los Angeles, that because of the smog, by the time they're 18, it's like they're smoking 2 packs a day or something. I don't know if that was bogus or not, but the truth is I didn't really want to raise them in the LA smog, and I was ready for a shift. And so we moved away, and that kind of, stopped my acting career to a large degree. We moved far enough away that I couldn't really, pop in and out for auditions anymore. So we moved to Santa Cruz, California, and I started a whole new life, reinvented myself.
It's very exciting because it's following what you're feeling rather than what's thinking logically.
Yeah,
or maybe it was.
No, it is. It's following the feeling. The logical part, which, sometimes we're motivated. They say even that we make our decisions based on emotion, and then we justify the decision based on logic. And so part of that justification for me as well is that for anybody who may be listening who knows what life as an actor is like, it's hills and valleys. You might work and make good money 1 month and then be out of work for 3 months. And to me also, that was like, that's not really a great way to raise a family, when you just don't know sometimes where that next paycheck's coming from. And so I thought, okay, you know what? I've been acting since, right out of college. I mean, that's what my degrees are in. And so I decided it's time to make a change, ready to move on.
I have 2 performing young people. They're not so young anymore, but you're on Broadway and the show's up for 2 years, but every show closes eventually. I find the way I know you is you're a very rare combination of logic and clarity coupled with insight and spirituality. And frankly, I've never known anyone like you. I know a lot of men think they're logical, but your wisdom and insight, it kind of blows me away when you ask me a question or give me a direction and I go someplace else. I don't realize I'm going someplace else, and you're right on. And you can keep me so focused. I wish I had more people like you in my life. Where does that come from?
Oh man, that's a great question. It's interesting because they say that about the sides of the hemispheres of our brain, one side being the analytical, the other side being the critical. And I am left-handed, and they say left-handed people tend to be more creative. But at the same time, I've also got this very analytical brain, like you said. As a matter of fact, I'm a Mensa member. I've got a relatively high IQ. And even with that, I've thought about these things. Unfortunately, I think way too much probably. But one of the ways that I define it is there's a difference between being smart, being intelligent, and being wise. And unfortunately, in our language, we often think of those 3 things as being very much the same. And they're not, though. To be smart, to know something, or if we consider that to be knowledge, anybody can go out and learn something. Okay. I learned that this is what the color white is. I learned that 2 + 2 = 4. You know something. That doesn't necessarily mean you're intelligent. It just means you learned something. Okay. To me, intelligence is your capability to understand and figure stuff out. And that is a difference between knowing something and then knowledge, and then intelligence being that capability to figure and computate in your mind. And then the final piece, the wisdom, which I often kind of bring in my spiritual side, the spirituality, is a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness. And potentially even one might say the why. Why do we think a certain way? Or why does that do something? That's where wisdom starts to evolve. So it's a person can go and learn something, and a person can figure stuff out, but the person who is wise is the one who knows kind of what to do with something or what to do with information. Is this making sense?
Yes. And I have grandchildren. One's in 2nd grade and one's in kindergarten. The other one's just starting preschool. It's like, yes, the school's a whole lot better than they used to be, but if they could just do what you just taught, it's like, I want to see you write a book.
Well, and the reason I even say that is because sometimes when people find out I'm in Mensa, they go, oh, you must know a lot. I'm like, no, that's not what being in Mensa is about. Mensa is, it's considered the high IQ society. It just means I have a great capacity for thought and thinking and processing information. Mensa people tend to be really good with puzzles and figuring things out. I'm a really good problem solver. And then, of course, one of the things is to really dig into the full answer to your question is how I coupled these things together. I was born and raised Catholic. And I found it to be, quite frankly, and no offense to other Catholics out there, but I found it to be a bit of a hypocritical religion. I saw people be very, how shall we say it, good Catholics on Sunday. And then the rest of the week, they were just bad people or just not really good people. It was they just one day a week to be in faith and be good. To me, that's hypocritical. And so I was looking for something more spiritually. And as I started to read and learn more about Buddha and Buddhism, and by the way, I don't consider Buddhism a religion. I consider it a philosophy. It's a way of life. I know there are many sects who've tried to turn it into more of a religion, but to me, that goes against the raw teachings of the Buddha. And so for me, it's a way of life. It's a philosophy. And so when I combined that with my other elements, and I love to meditate, and I've gone on 5-day silent retreats, and that allows me to get more in touch with the wisdom, I think, of our reality. And so it's all those things in combination, I guess, has built who I am.
That's incredible. Could you tell us about your book, The Art of Forgetting?
Sure. Yeah. So my path has been evolutionary. I mean, I wasn't, obviously born this way, having the wisdom, if you can call it, that I do have. But I was in a path for a long time where I was pursuing money. Like outside of acting, I was pursuing it for the passion and for the love. But then when I stopped that, I had to start to go, I got a family to raise. So I started a bit of a pursuit of money. How do I make the most money I can to support this family? And I got into the pharmaceutical industry for a while. And it was in the pharma industry that, again, having a very questioning mind, that I started to look at and wonder about things. And one of the things that really baffled me was the pharma industry spends hundreds of millions of dollars in trainings all the time for their sales staff. And I would notice that we would go into this big training. They would fly us all into wherever the training was happening. They'd give us this week-long training, and we'd go back out in the field, and everybody's excited and pumped to share this newfound wisdom and information with the doctors that we meet with. And that would last for about 2 weeks. And then we would all fall back into our old habits of the way we were. And I started to talk to some people about this, and they said, oh yeah, it's common. We call it the suntan effect. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And the suntan effect, because you go on vacation, you get a beautiful suntan, and 2 weeks later, you're back to your, regular color. And so it started to kind of pollinate in my mind some other thoughts. And at the same time, in the pharma industry, I learned about a double-blind study. And for those who may know what a double blind is or may not, let me just explain it easily in a nutshell. A blind study, of course, is if I'm the physician and I'm offering you as the patient a drug for a treatment of whatever it is that your ailment may be. I'm in a blind study. You're agreed to participate in the study, and therefore you don't know if you're getting the actual drug or if you're getting a placebo. Okay. But I know as the doctor which I'm giving to you, whether I'm giving you the real drug or the placebo. Well, they found over time and through other studies that the doctor knowing which drug they're giving you, whether placebo or not, had an impact on the outcome. So they developed a double-blind study where now the doctor is not even allowed to know whether I'm giving you the actual drug or not.
Wow.
Now, here's the interesting thing about this, though. When you really break this down, it's like, wait a minute. So in other words, if the physician knowing he's giving you the real drug, if that has an impact on your results, how could that be? You're the one taking the drug, yet my belief system is impacting whether or not you get better. I mean, think about the repercussions of that someone else's thinking that you're going to get better actually can make you get better. Now, even though it was minuscule, it's not necessarily massive differences in results, but it was measurable, so much so that they go, we need to make these double-blind studies because it's impacting the results. So the more I looked at that, I realized, wow, we do this in our lives all the time.
Yeah,
we do. If you go to someone expecting a negative result, you've improved the chances of that negative response coming back at you. Mm-hmm. If you go to someone expecting a positive result, you have actually improved the chances of that positive result coming back at you. It's so important for us to harness this. And so the art of forgetting is about that piece that not just externally, like if we believe someone else is going to get better or worse, but internally. If we internally think and we validate it with external proof that I'm not well, or I'm going to be sick, or I'm getting worse, we've increased the chances that we will indeed get worse. And we can flip that on a dime. Why don't we forget what we think we know and start from anew? That's why it's called the art of forgetting. You're not going to forget everything, of course. It's selective, but we forget the things that we think or hold to be true about ourselves and about the people in our lives. And when we do that, and when we can truly master that and let go of it, we actually open ourselves up to a world of possibility that didn't exist before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I've been teaching and writing about that for decades. It totally makes sense. And I'm also very involved studying biocentrism, which is your world. Nothing exists out there. Everything exists in here. And it's everything that you just said totally makes sense. So I'm also aware that you're a certified Dharma coach. I know what a Dharma coach, or I know what Dharma is, but my guess is most of our listeners don't. I wondered if you'd share what that's all about.
Sure. So in my Buddhist path, I have participated in a lot of, I was mentioning these 5-day silent retreats. And here in Santa Cruz, we have an Insight Retreat Center. Insight Meditation Center. And Insight Meditation, for many years, people may be familiar with the name Vipassana, which is the Pali word for insight. But Vipassana was confusing to a lot of people, so ultimately they changed the name to just become Insight. So Insight Retreat Centers are all around the United States, and it's Insight Meditation Centers. And it was there through our guiding teacher at Insight Santa Cruz that I signed up for and took a Dharma certification course to study the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, and to be able to, when you become a certified Dharma teacher, it doesn't mean that you have mastered all of the teachings of Buddha by any means. It just means I've learned enough about it to be able to teach others a little bit about it as well. So I don't want to give it more of a title than it actually means anything. But it was great training for me because I like to lead guided meditations. I like to lead sits, meditation sits, and short Dharma discussions around that as well. So that's why I took the certification.
But that's so cool. I was listening to your Consciously Speaking interview with Shakti. I'm sorry, I don't remember her whole name.
Durga.
Talking, all about yoga. Now, 35 years ago, I studied yoga, but it was the poses and it was the meditation. I had no idea what yoga really is. That was just incredible for spiritual seekers who are practicing yoga. I can't recommend highly enough to listen to that episode.
Oh, thank you.
I still have more questions. I want to just take a quick break, my sponsor break, for today's special gift for all of you. It's something I have not offered in this podcast yet. It's something I used to do regularly. I'm offering you a chance for a one-on-one discovery call with me, and the link and details will be in the show notes. So getting back, I just mentioned your podcast and the variety that you have on them. And I definitely would love to get you on. I'm starting a new show that's just casual chats on talking about the something to whine about. But where does this diversity of topics, of areas come from? And do you foresee any new ones in the future?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's podcasts are kind of like Lay's potato chips. For those who remember the old ad, no one can eat just one. Well, podcasting for me, it really is a big chunk of my business. And of course, in teaching podcasting, I teach 7 different ways to monetize a show. And each of my shows is monetized differently. And the Something to Whine About show is through a method of monetization that we call freebies and write-offs. Mm-hmm. And basically, because I've just always been a wine lover, I love the experience of it. I love sharing about it. I don't drink it to get drunk. I drink it to enjoy the different flavors, the terroir, and different elements. And so I'd been spending a lot of money on wine, collecting wine, living in the Sonoma, Napa area, Santa Cruz Mountain wineries here. So it'd be nothing for me to drop $1,000 or $2,000 occasionally on a wine weekend to go up and buy a bunch of wine. And I decided that, I didn't decide this part, but as an industry, a little side note, if you're in the industry, the wine industry, you typically never have to pay for tastings, which right there could be anywhere from $15 to $50 per person. You don't have to pay for tastings, and you get a 30% discount on wine. Well, having a wine podcast means I'm in the industry. So now, whereas if a $1,000 wine purchase is only $700, so I've saved $300 there, and the wine tastings are all free. So my co-host and I, we travel around to the different wineries. We interview either the winemaker or the owner of the winery, or sometimes even just the tasting room manager, whoever we can get to meet with us. But we get to explore these wonderful wineries, and we get to write everything off. So it's freebies and write-offs. That's why that show came about, to serve one of my passions.
That was so incredibly fascinating to me, because I don't drink. I stopped drinking when my first child turned 16 because there was some alcoholism on the other side of the family, and I didn't want him to get stuck in that. So I'm listening. Honestly, I want to get you on that chat show because it was incredibly fascinating. If I was going to turn it off, but I listened to the whole episode. The variety, what other, the buy this, not that, that totally surprised me. I didn't realize what it was about until I went through the topics.
Yeah, that show came about because I was looking at another one of the things that I teach is to reverse engineer your show. And what that means is that if you're thinking of starting a podcast, it's important that you find a way to make money with your podcast, because if you don't, it ends up being work without any return on it. And that's why often people burn out and they stop creating their shows. And 70% of the shows don't even make it past 7 episodes. So it's so bad that they've coined the term for it. It's called pod fading. And so I teach how to reverse engineer your show, which means you start with, okay, well, what do I have to sell? And so in my case, for Buy This Not That, I was thinking, well, I train entrepreneurs. My target audience are people who want to get their message out to the world in a bigger way. So I'm looking for visionary solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. Great. So I know what I have to sell, and I know who buys it, who my target audience is. Okay. I train these people, and here's the target audience, people that I like to attract. How can I create a podcast then that will attract that audience? And so I thought, well, the one commonality that came to mind at the time that all people in this space of being an entrepreneur have is they need training and they need software to help them run their business, whatever that software may be. And so this show is a review show where I will bring on the creator of a particular software, like Focuster, as an example, one of my episodes. And I interview them about what your software does, how it supports. So it's really a kind of like a consumer review show. I'm literally kicking the tires, sharing about all the different ways, that their, service works. And then also the trainings that entrepreneurs need, like how do you do a great webinar? How do you create an online course? So I bring people in that are specialists in those areas and I review their training programs. So I know that this show is designed to attract my ideal target audience so that when I'm prepared to make an offer or if they get onto my mailing list, they're the right audience for me. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I wish I knew about this years ago. I wasted so much time, energy, and money following people who, well, as you've shared on some of the shows, a lot of people out there say they're experts when they've never done it at all. It's like as soon as I was getting into the podcast, as soon as I started studying with you, you know, what you're focusing on, you suddenly see it everywhere. I saw zillions of people saying, I'll teach you how to be a podcaster in 2 weeks. And it's like, I wonder how many of them have podcasts. I wonder how many of them are successful. It's like...
Well, and the big challenge with it, Allie, is that, and I see this too, and quite honestly, it disgusts me a little bit, that people will launch a podcast and then all of a sudden think they're an expert and start turn around and teaching other people to do it. Well, it's because the podcast launch itself is easy. Yeah, that's like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to open a door. Look how easy that is. Cool. Hey, you can open a door now. Now you can go teach other people how to open a door. It's that easy. I mean, it's really pretty simple, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be a good podcaster. It doesn't mean you're going to know how to monetize it. And the people who are all of a sudden claiming they're a podcast guru, I mean, I've literally seen people lead a podcast webinar, like they're offering a course and they go, I'm going to quote this one as verbatim because it just blew me away. They go, well, one of the things in the podcast industry is if you're getting sponsorships, they pay you on a CPM. And I don't know what a CPM, I don't know what that stands for, but that's how you get paid. I'm like, wow, you should not be teaching podcasting if you don't even know what CPM stands for to me. But this is a thing. They don't know the industry. They launch a show and all of a sudden they think they're a pro at it and they're not. They know a fraction of it. I purposefully, even as many years as I've been doing it with hundreds and hundreds of episodes produced and out there in the world, I still study podcasting. The industry is evolving on a daily basis, changing constantly. You have to keep up with it, especially if you want to consider yourself a coach.
Well, I know because you attract who you are, and I've met the most wonderful people by being in coaching programs with them, with you, and I subscribe to everybody else's podcast because they're good. Even if I didn't think I wanted to listen to the topic, they're good because people know what they're doing. Yeah. So thank you for having the integrity and the wisdom and the heart, the big heart to want to do that because you definitely attract heart-centered people. I mean, like one of your heart-centered sales leader, I don't like to listen to podcasts, but I enjoy every one of her episodes. So,
yeah, Connie's great.
So what are people looking for? Because you have such a broad range of expertise. What are they looking for usually when they're coming to you?
Well, often people first connect with me based in the podcasting space because that's kind of the tip of the spear, if you will, for what I teach. I think everybody should lead with podcasting for many reasons, because podcasting, it is easy to get into and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg and it doesn't take you a ton of time to launch a show. Now, it's important to launch the right show the right way so that you don't end up pod fading. But as a business element, it's very important to do because it starts initially building your authority, which again, that's the, podcast is the tip of the spear, but the rest of the spear that helps you to build your authority is comprised of virtual summits, speaking from stage, and getting published. And as you know, my Authority Academy, we encompass all four of those elements because when you use those strategically and interweave them, number one, it makes it exponentially more powerful because now you're not reinventing the wheel constantly. You're actually using these to support each other and build your authority rapidly. But the other part is because of the way you interweave them strategically, it makes it easier to do there's a natural flow and ease to it when done properly. You're not fighting upstream. So with the Authority Academy, these are the things that I teach to really help people to go from the best kept secret to the go-to expert in their field.
It's just extraordinary. We're getting toward the end of our time together, and I'm wondering if you have a special message, a thought you want to leave with everyone today.
Absolutely. I would say this. One of the reasons that I started teaching podcasting, it relates to when I started my first podcast. And by the way, when I launched my show, I had no intention of becoming a podcast teacher. I didn't even know what a podcast was, barely. But I launched Consciously Speaking with the mission of waking up the planet one person at a time. My hope was that I'll put a message out there, and even if just one person hears it and it helps them to be more awake, more conscious, great, it's done its job. Well, through the evolution of that, people started reaching out to me because I had learned so much so fast. I launched it as a 7-day-a-week show. And I would share my insights and things I'd learned in groups, and people were going, wow, you really know this stuff. And then they started asking me lots of questions and asking me to coach them. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, you know what, Allie, I can take my work, my waking up the planet one person at a time, to another degree by helping other messengers wake the planet up. People like you, the more heart-centered entrepreneurs I can help to spread their message, it now creates this bigger ripple effect. So it was a natural sequence for me. And so the bottom line of it that I'd love to let your listeners know and make an offer to them is that if you've got your message hidden inside you, I have this real sadness around the fact that I believe graveyards are filled with too many people who went to the grave with their story left untold, with their gifts left unshared. And I'd love to put an end to that as well. And so I love to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to get their message out to the world. And one thing, if we can put a link in the show notes for it, is I'd like to offer people my free guide. It's called The Simple 5-Step Process to Launch a Rockin' Podcast in Just 14 Days. And that's free, and anybody can get access to that if they're interested. And so if we can put the link in the show notes, that'd be wonderful.
Absolutely. So I thank you so much for being who you are and sharing all that you know to change the world, because I believe that you're accomplishing what you're setting out to do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and what you're up to in the world as well.
Remember, everybody, join our Facebook group, ask questions, chat with friends, make some new friends. And remember, you can also subscribe, rate, and review the show so others will find it. And I truly appreciate your sharing it. And visit our website for additional show tidbits and an easy way to access all the episodes online. All the links mentioned today are in the show notes, and I will see you here next time.
You've been listening to a talk on the wilder side. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Get Metaphysical. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every Monday for more exciting insights and wisdom on life beyond your 5 senses. Until next time, take a small step in a new direction. Start now.